This billionaire man is already in his 80s. Once I marry him, I don't need to work. It's only a matter of few years before he passes away, and I will inherit all his wealth, making me a billionaire. Anita said to herself, grinning, as she lays on her couch lazily scrolling through her phone. Anita grew up believing in baby girl lifestyle only. She believes a woman should never work but to be taken care of by a man. Anita was the talk of the town because of her stunning beauty. Her glowing caramel skin, long black hair, and captivating smile drew attention wherever she went. But behind her charm lay a burning desire for wealth. Anita believed that the fastest way to live her dream life was to marry a wealthy man or date rich men who could fund her extravagant lifestyle. Anita had no interest in learning a skill or working for herself. "Why should I waste my time when a man's money can do all the work for me?" she would boast to her younger sister, Tanya. Tanya, unlike Anita, was hard-working and ambitious. She had just finished her training as a fashion designer and often tried to talk sense into her older sister. One evening, while they sat on the front porch of their family's modest home, Tanya turned to Anita. "Anita, you can't keep living like this. Depending on men isn't a plan. You need to find something to do with your life," she said firmly. Anita smirked and flicked her long braids over her shoulder. "Tanya, you worry too much. Why should I stress myself when there are rich men willing to take care of me? All I have to do is look good and enjoy life." "That's not how life works," Tanya said, her voice rising slightly. "What happens when those men stop giving you money? What happens when you're no longer the young, attractive girl they're chasing after? What will you do then?" Anita laughed dismissively. "By the time that happens, I'll already be settled with a billionaire husband. So relax, Tanya. You worry too much." Tanya sighed, realizing her sister wasn't ready to listen. "I just hope you won't regret these choices one day," she muttered, before walking inside. Anita's best friend, Clara, arrived later that evening in her shiny red car. Clara was Anita's partner in crime and her biggest enabler. The two of them shared the same mindset. Life was meant to be enjoyed, and men were meant to fund that enjoyment. "Girl, get dressed, we're hitting the club tonight," Clara said excitedly as she stepped out of her car. Anita's face lit up. "Who are we meeting tonight?" "There's this new guy I met last week. He's loaded, but don't worry, if he's not my type, I'll pass him to you," Clara said with a wink. Anita laughed and gave her friend a high five. "That's why you're my bestie, always looking out for me." An hour later, the two friends were dressed in their finest outfits, ready to turn heads at the club. The moment they walked in, all eyes were on them. Anita loved the attention. She felt like a queen among commoners. Clara pointed out a man sitting in the VIP section. "That's him. His name is David. Owns several businesses in Lagos. He's been buying me gifts all week." "Let's go say hi," Anita said eagerly. The two of them made their way to the VIP section, where David and his friends were seated. David's eyes lit up when he saw Clara, but his gaze quickly shifted to Anita. "Who's your friend?" he asked, flashing a charming smile. "This is Anita," Clara said, introducing her. David extended his hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Anita. You're as beautiful as the morning sun." Anita blushed. "Thank you, David. I've heard a lot about you." The night was filled with laughter, drinks, and promises. David, impressed by Anita's beauty and confidence, spent lavishly on both her and Clara. By the end of the night, Anita was convinced she had found her next target. The next morning, Tanya confronted Anita. "You came home so late last night. Don't you think you're overdoing this lifestyle?" Anita rolled her eyes. "Tanya, don't start. I had fun, and that's all that matters." "But for how long, Anita? You're almost 30, and you don't have anything to show for yourself except designer bags and shoes bought with other people's money," Tanya said, her voice full of frustration. "Don't be jealous because I'm living the good life," Anita snapped. "Jealous?" Tanya scoffed. "I just don't want you to wake up one day and realize you've wasted your life chasing after meaningless things." "I'm not wasting my life. I'm enjoying it," Anita said firmly. Clara called later that day. "Guess what? David wants us to join him on a trip to Dubai next weekend." Anita's eyes widened in excitement. Dubai! Oh my God, Clara, you're the best! Pack your bags, babe. We're going to live like queens, Clara said. Anita hung up and began planning for the trip, ignoring Tanya's disapproving glances. She was too blinded by her dreams of wealth and luxury to see the risks she was taking. But life has a way of teaching harsh lessons, and Anita's carefree days were numbered. One Friday night, Anita and Clara decided to go out to a new, exclusive lounge in the city. Word had it that the place was where the wealthiest men gathered, and for Anita and Clara, that was all the motivation they needed. Dressed in their finest outfits, with sparkling heels and matching designer handbags, they walked into the lounge, confident and ready to make an impression. The lounge exuded wealth. From the crystal chandeliers to the velvet seats, everything screamed luxury. Clara whispered to Anita, "This is it, babe. Tonight, we're bagging someone loaded." Anita smiled slyly. "As long as they've got money, I'm all in." As they settled into their seats, sipping on expensive cocktails, a group of older men entered the lounge. They looked out of place among the younger crowd, but the tailored suits and gold watches on their wrists hinted at their wealth. Clara nudged Anita and nodded toward the men. "Look at that. That's old money right there." Anita laughed. "Old is the word. They must be in their 60s at least. Not really our type, is it?" "Who cares about type when there's money involved?" Clara replied with a wink. Moments later, one of the older men, a short, bald man with a cane and a striking gold wristwatch, walked over to their table. He had a friendly smile, but looked far older than anyone they'd ever entertained before. He seemed to be in his 80s, and his slow, deliberate movements revealed his frailty. "Good evening, beautiful ladies," the man said in a deep, raspy voice. His eyes lingered on Clara. "My name is Mr. Benson. May I join you?" Clara gave him a polite smile but avoided eye contact. "Oh, sure, why not?" she said hesitantly. Mr. Benson slowly pulled out a chair and sat down. "You have a lovely smile," he said to Clara. "I couldn't help but notice you from across the room." Clara smiled awkwardly, while Anita hid her amusement behind her cocktail glass. After a few minutes of polite conversation, it became clear that Mr. Benson was interested in Clara. "So, what do you do, Mr. Benson?" Clara asked, trying to keep the conversation light. "I'm retired now, but I spent decades in the oil and gas business," he replied. "I've been fortunate to live a very comfortable life, but enough about me. Tell me about yourself." Clara shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't interested in Mr. Benson, and Anita could tell. Clara shot Anita a quick glance, silently pleading for her to intervene. Anita leaned forward with a bright smile. "Mr. Benson, you seem like such a wonderful man. Clara's a little shy, but I know she appreciates your compliments." Clara's eyes widened, but before she could protest, Anita added, "Why don't we exchange numbers? You seem like someone who could show us how to live the good life." Mr. Benson chuckled. "I like your energy, young lady." He pulled out an old-fashioned phone and handed it to Anita. Anita quickly typed in Clara's number and handed the phone back to him. Clara stared at Anita in disbelief but said nothing. Once Mr. Benson left to rejoin his friends, Clara turned to Anita. "What was that?" "Why would you give him my number?" Clara hissed. Anita rolled her eyes. "Relax, Clara. This is our jackpot. Don't you see? A man like that will shower you with money and gifts, and he's so old he probably won't ask for much in return." Clara frowned. "But he's in his 80s, Anita. That's way out of my comfort zone." "That's the point," Anita exclaimed. "He's too old to be demanding or clingy. He'll probably just want some company and someone to talk to. Meanwhile, you'll be swimming in cash." Clara hesitated, still unsure. "I don't know, Anita. This feels weird." "Come on, Clara," Anita urged. "We've dated married men and guys twice our age before. What's the difference? This is a golden opportunity. Don't let it slip away." Clara sighed. Fine. I'll give it a try, but if it gets too weird, I'm out. Trust me, babe, you won't regret this, Anita said with a sly grin. The next day, Mr. Benson called Clara, and Anita was right there to coach her through the conversation. Be sweet, but not too eager, Anita whispered, as Clara picked up the call. Hello, Clara, this is Benson. I hope I'm not disturbing you. His raspy voice came through the phone. Oh, not at all, Mr. Benson. It's nice to hear from you, Clara replied, trying to sound cheerful. I was wondering if you'd like to join me for dinner tomorrow evening, he said. Clara looked at Anita, who nodded excitedly. Sure, I'd love to, Clara said reluctantly. Wonderful. I'll send a car to pick you up. You'll love the restaurant, Mr. Benson said before ending the call. Anita clapped her hands in excitement. This is it, Clara. You're about to hit the jackpot. The following evening, Clara went on the dinner date with Mr. Benson, while Anita waited eagerly for her to return and share the details. When Clara finally came back, Anita bombarded her with questions. How was it? Did he spoil you? What did he say? Clara sank into the couch and sighed. It was interesting. He's nice, but it's so weird, Anita. He talks like he's my grandfather. He even called me dear a few times. Anita laughed. That's perfect. Older men are always like that. So, did he give you anything? Clara pulled out a small box and opened it to reveal a gold bracelet. He gave me this. Anita's eyes widened. That's gorgeous. See, I told you this would work. Stick with him, Clara. This is just the beginning. Despite her initial reservations, Clara decided to keep seeing Mr. Benson, encouraged by Anita's constant persuasion. Meanwhile, Anita couldn't help but feel a little jealous. She began plotting ways to insert herself into Mr. Benson's life, hoping to benefit from his wealth as well. Little did they know. Their actions were leading them down a dangerous path, one that would teach them a lesson they would never forget. It had been 2 weeks since Clara's first date with Mr. Benson, but Clara wasn't giving the situation much attention. Anita, on the other hand, couldn't get the man out of her mind. Every time she saw Clara, her first question was about the wealthy older man. So, have you and Mr. Benson started talking properly yet? Anita asked one evening as they sat in Clara's living room. Clara shrugged, scrolling through her phone lazily. Not really. He calls every other day, but I'm just not into it. He's sweet though and really polite. Anita raised an eyebrow. Not into it. Clara, this man is old, rich, and clearly interested in you. Do you know how rare that is? You can't let this opportunity pass. Clara laughed. Honestly, Anita, I just don't feel comfortable with him. It's like talking to my grandfather. I've been dodging his invitations for dinner. Clara, Anita said, feigning shock. This man is probably everything you've been looking for. What's his full name again? Clara, distracted by a notification on her phone, casually replied, His full name is Benson Ollertund. Anita froze for a moment. The name sounded eerily familiar, but she didn't let it show. Oh, okay, she said nonchalantly, leaning back in her chair. Later that evening, after she returned to her apartment, Anita's curiosity got the better of her. She pulled out her phone and typed Benson Ollertund into the search bar. Her jaw dropped as countless articles and photos of the man flooded the screen. He wasn't just rich. He was a billionaire, a mogul in the oil and gas industry with properties all over the world. Anita stared at her phone in disbelief. This man is worth billions, she whispered to herself, her mind racing. Suddenly, Mr. Benson's age didn't matter anymore. To her, he was now the most attractive man she had ever known. Determined to take advantage of this revelation, Anita devised a plan. The next morning, she showed up at Clara's house unannounced, carrying a box of pastries as a peace offering. Morning, babe, Anita said cheerfully. I brought breakfast. Thought we could hang out for a bit. Clara smiled. Wow, you're in a good mood today. What's the occasion? No occasion, just thought we could catch up. You're my bestie after all, Anita said sweetly. They spent the morning chatting and laughing, but Anita's real mission was to get Mr. Benson's phone number. She watched closely as Clara placed her phone on the coffee table and excused herself to use the bathroom. As soon as Clara was out of sight, Anita grabbed the phone and quickly scrolled through the call log. Finding Mr. Benson's number, she memorized it in seconds and put the phone back in its original spot before Clara returned. Later that day, Anita called Mr. Benson. Her heart raced as the phone rang. When he picked up, his deep, raspy voice was filled with curiosity. "Hello, who is this?" he asked. "Good afternoon, Mr. Benson. This is Anita, Clara's friend. We met at the lounge the other night," she said, her voice dripping with charm. Anita," he said, sounding surprised. "This is unexpected. To what do I owe the pleasure?" "I hope I'm not being too forward, but I've been thinking about you since the night we met," Anita said, forcing a shy laugh. "I just felt like reaching out." Mr. Benson chuckled. Well, this is a pleasant surprise. Clara didn't mention you were interested in getting to know me. Clara's not really my type. But there's something special about you, Mr. Benson." Flattered, Mr. Benson agreed to meet Anita for dinner the following evening. She showed up to the date wearing an elegant dress she had borrowed from Clara's wardrobe. She was determined to impress him. At the restaurant, Mr. Benson couldn't take his eyes off Anita. "You look stunning, my dear," he said, pulling out a chair for her. "Thank you, Mr. Benson," Anita replied, flashing her most charming smile. Throughout the evening, Anita was all laughter and compliments, hanging on his every word. Mr. Benson was clearly smitten, and by the end of the night, he had promised to see her again soon. Within weeks, Anita's life transformed. Mr. Benson showered her with gifts, designer clothes, jewelry, and even a brand new car. He gave her large sums of money, which she used to flaunt her new status on social media. Anita was living the life she had always dreamed of. One evening, Clara came to visit Anita, unaware of her friend's newfound fortune. When she saw the luxurious car parked in front of Anita's apartment, she was stunned. "Whose car is this?" Clara asked as Anita opened the door. Anita smirked. "It's mine." "Yours? How? Where did you get this?" Clara asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. Anita shrugged. "Let's just say I've been hanging out with the right people." Clara frowned. "What do you mean by that? Wait, is this Mr. Benson's doing?" Anita's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "What if it is? You didn't want him, remember? So I stepped in. And now look at me, living my best life." Clara's face turned red with anger. "You went behind my back and stole his number. How could you, Anita? I trusted you." "Relax, Clara," Anita said dismissively. "It's not like you wanted him anyway. You said he wasn't your type, so why are you mad? I just took an opportunity that you were too blind to see." "It's not the point. You betrayed me," Clara shouted. "Betrayed you? Over a man you didn't even want?" Anita shot back. "Look, Clara, I'm not going to apologize for chasing my dreams. If you're upset, that's on you." Clara stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. Anita shrugged and poured herself a glass of champagne. She didn't care about Clara's feelings anymore. She was too busy enjoying her new life of luxury. But what Anita didn't realize was that her actions were setting the stage for a chain of events that would eventually bring her world crashing down. Circle. Flaunting her newfound wealth at every opportunity. She posted pictures of her expensive dinners, luxurious car, and designer clothes on social media, leaving everyone wondering how she had managed to transform her life so quickly. However, there was one person she had been avoiding: Clara. After stealing Mr. Benson from her best friend, Anita no longer saw the need to keep Clara around. She ignored Clara's calls and texts, avoiding her at all costs. In Anita's mind, Clara couldn't be trusted anymore. After all, she might try to take Mr. Benson back if she discovered how wealthy he truly was. Meanwhile, Mr. Benson was smitten with Anita. Despite their massive age difference, he found her energy and charm irresistible. During one of their dates at an upscale restaurant, he surprised her with a life-changing proposal. "Anita," Mr. Benson said, taking her hand across the table. "I've been thinking a lot about us, and I believe I've found my happiness in you. You make me feel alive again." Anita's heart raced. She could see where the conversation was going. "Mr. Benson," she said, her voice soft and full of fake emotion. He smiled warmly. "Please, call me Benson. Or better yet, your husband-to-be. Anita, will you marry me?" For a moment, Anita froze, pretending to be overwhelmed with emotion. She glanced at the sparkling diamond ring he was holding out to her. It was enormous, easily worth millions. "Yes," Anita exclaimed, tears of joy streaming down her face. She stood up and hugged him tightly. "Yes, Benson, I'll marry you." Mr. Benson looked thrilled, but in Anita's mind, all she could think about was the fortune she would inherit once he passed away. "This is it," she thought to herself. "This is the life I've always dreamed of." She wasted no time in planning the wedding. She hired the most expensive wedding planner in the city, ordered a custom-made dress from an exclusive designer, and even booked a 5-star hotel for the reception. Everything had to be perfect, not because of love, but because of the image she wanted to portray. However, Anita's secret couldn't stay hidden for long. One afternoon, Clara was out shopping when she overheard 2 women gossiping about Anita's engagement. "Have you heard? That girl Anita's marrying some billionaire," one woman said. "Really? I heard he's old enough to be her grandfather," the other woman replied, laughing. Clara's ears perked up. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Without thinking, she approached the women. "Excuse me, are you talking about Anita?" Clara asked. "Yes," one of the women replied. "She's engaged to some oil tycoon. What's his name again? Benson Olatunde, I think?" Clara's blood boiled. She thanked the women and stormed out of the shop, clutching her bag tightly. "She stole him from me," Clara thought angrily, "and she didn't even have the decency to tell me." A few days later, Clara was shopping at a boutique when she spotted Anita browsing through wedding accessories. Clara clenched her fists and marched over. "So, this is why you've been avoiding me," Clara said, her voice loud enough to turn heads. Anita froze, then turned around with a forced smile. "Clara, hi. I didn't expect to see you here." "Don't hide me," Clara snapped. "You've been hiding from me because you stole Benson from me, didn't you?" Anita's smile faded. "Clara, it's not what you think." "Ah, spare me the lies," Clara interrupted. "You're unbelievable, Anita. You went behind my back, stole his number, and now you're planning to marry him? What kind of friend does that?"
Anita rolled her eyes. "First of all, Clara, you didn't even want him. You said he wasn't your type, remember? So why are you acting like I did something wrong?"
"Doesn't give you the right to betray me," Clara shouted, her voice echoing through the shop. "Well, maybe if you weren't so blind to opportunities, you'd be the one living this life instead of me." Anita shot back. "But no, you were too busy being ungrateful to see what was right in front of you." The argument escalated, and soon the 2 women were hurling insults at each other. "You're a snake, Anita," Clara yelled. "All you care about is money. You'd sell your soul for a designer bag. And you're a jealous, bitter woman who doesn't know how to seize the moment," Anita retorted. "Maybe that's why you're still broke while I'm out here living the life." The commotion drew the attention of the shop attendants, who tried to intervene. "Ladies, please calm down," one of them said, stepping between the 2. Clara ignored the attendant and pointed a finger at Anita. "Mark my words, Anita, this won't end well for you. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you're getting yourself into." Anita smirked. "We'll see about that." With that, Clara stormed out of the shop, leaving Anita to finish her shopping. Anita brushed off the encounter, convincing herself that Clara was just bitter and jealous. But, deep down, Clara's words lingered in her mind, planting a seed of doubt. Was she really making the right decision? Or was she setting herself up for a disaster she couldn't see coming? Only time would tell. Anita couldn't believe her luck. She was now Mrs. Anita Olatunde, wife of one of the wealthiest men in the country. Her wedding had been a grand affair, the talk of the town for weeks. Everyone admired her transformation from a struggling young woman to the wife of a billionaire. Her first year of marriage was like a dream come true. Benson doted on her, showering her with expensive jewelry, cars, and designer clothes. They traveled to exotic locations: Paris, Dubai, the Maldives. Every day felt like a fairy tale. "Anita, I booked us a private villa in Santorini for next month," Benson announced one morning as they ate breakfast by their pool. Anita smiled and kissed him on the cheek. "You spoil me too much, Benson." "Only the best for my queen," he said, beaming. Anita basked in her good fortune. This was the life she had always dreamed of. She barely thought about her past struggles or her broken friendship with Clara. She was far too busy enjoying her luxurious new life. However, as the months passed, Anita began to notice cracks in the perfect picture. Benson was much older than her usual type, and his health started showing signs of decline. He often complained of fatigue and occasional chest pain. "Maybe you should see a doctor," Anita suggested one evening after Benson cancelled their dinner plans because he felt unwell. "I'm fine, Anita," he insisted. "It's just age catching up with me. Nothing to worry about." Anita wasn't too concerned. In fact, a small part of her was secretly relieved. She had always known Benson wouldn't live forever, and she had convinced herself that once he passed, all his wealth would be hers. Her life took another turn when she found out she was pregnant. Benson was overjoyed, and he went all out to pamper her during the pregnancy. "Our child will have everything he or she could ever want," Benson said one evening as they decorated the nursery. "Sure they will," Anita replied, imagining her child growing up in wealth and comfort. Their baby boy, Ethan, was born a healthy and beautiful child. Anita felt a new sense of purpose as a mother, but she couldn't help but notice that Benson's health was deteriorating rapidly. On Benson's 85th birthday, he threw a grand party, inviting business associates, friends, and family. Anita stood by his side, glowing in a custom-made gown as they cut the cake together. "You've made this old man very happy, Anita," Benson said, holding her hand. "And you've made me the happiest woman alive," she replied, smiling sweetly. But later that night, Benson fell gravely ill. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors informed Anita that his condition was critical. As Benson lay on the hospital bed, Anita sat by his side, trying to hide her excitement. "This is it," she thought. "Everything is about to be mine." She held his hand and whispered, "You'll be fine, Benson. You're strong." Benson chuckled weakly. "I'm not afraid of dying, Anita. I've lived a full life. But there's something I need to tell you before it's too late." Anita's heart raced. "What is it?" Benson's eyes filled with tears. "You've been a wonderful wife, but there's a truth about my wealth that I've kept from you. It's time you knew." Anita frowned, her excitement giving way to confusion. "What do you mean?" Benson sighed deeply, struggling to find the words. "When I was 80, I was a poor, desperate man. I had lost everything: my business, my home, my dignity. I was ready to give up, but then I met a man who claimed he could help me turn my life around." Anita leaned in, her confusion growing. "What kind of help?" "He introduced me to a ritual," Benson continued, his voice barely a whisper. "He promised me wealth beyond my wildest dreams, but there was a price to pay. The wealth would only last 5 years, and at the end of those 5 years, I would die. Not only that, but everything I acquired with the money would vanish." Anita stared at him in shock. "What are you saying, Benson? Are you telling me that all of this, your money, your businesses, your properties, it's all going to disappear?" "Yes," Benson said, tears streaming down his face. "The time is almost up, Anita. Once I'm gone, so is everything else." "No!" Anita screamed, standing up. "This can't be true. You're lying. I wish I were," Benson said, his voice cracking. "But it's the truth. I wanted to leave you and Ethan with something, but I can't. I'm sorry, Anita." Anita's mind raced as she tried to process what she had just heard. The wealth she had built her dreams on was nothing but an illusion, a fleeting gift with an expiration date. You mean to tell me that I married you, had your child, and gave up everything for nothing? She shouted, her anger boiling over. I never meant to hurt you, Benson said, his voice barely audible. I thought I could beat the odds, but the ritual was clear. The wealth isn't mine to keep. Anita stormed out of the hospital room, her mind spinning. She couldn't believe her life had come to this. She had sacrificed her friendships, her dignity, and her time for a man who had sold his soul for temporary riches. Over the next few days, Benson's condition worsened. Anita stayed by his side, but her heart was filled with resentment. She couldn't look at him without feeling betrayed. On the 5th day after his birthday, Benson passed away peacefully in his sleep. The moment Anita received the news of Benson's passing, her body turned cold. Her hands trembled as she held the phone to her ear, her breath quickening. Panic set in like a raging storm. This couldn't be happening. No, not yet. She had been waiting for his death, but not like this. Not with all his wealth about to disappear. Anita's mind raced. There had to be a way to stop this. The money couldn't just vanish into thin air. Not after all the luxury she had enjoyed, not after all she had sacrificed. She quickly grabbed her phone and began dialing the numbers of herbalists she had met through her past connections. If Benson's money came from rituals, surely there had to be a way to keep it from vanishing. Please, Baba, you have to help me, she pleaded over the phone to one of the most powerful herbalists she knew. The man is dead, but I need the wealth to remain. What can we do? A deep sigh came from the other end. Nothing can be done, my daughter. The deal was made, and the price must be paid. Anita's stomach clenched. She refused to accept it. She called another herbalist, and another. Each one told her the same thing. Nothing could be done. The money, the properties, the businesses, everything Benson had gained through the ritual was bound to disappear. Still, Anita refused to give up. If the wealth was going to vanish, she would take as much as she could before it did. She hurriedly went to Benson's properties, hoping to sell some before they could disappear. She contacted buyers, eager to close deals fast. But just when she thought she had secured some wealth for herself, she discovered that she had been scammed. The money never reached her accounts. The buyers had vanished. No, 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 she screamed, throwing her phone across the room. Her heart pounded with fear. But the worst was yet to come. Days later, one of Benson's companies caught fire. The news spread quickly. His empire was burning to the ground. Anita watched in shock as the images flashed on the television screen. Flames consumed the massive headquarters of Benson's most profitable business. The employees scrambled in panic. Fire trucks surrounded the building, and smoke covered the sky. This is not happening, she whispered, gripping her chest. But it was. The ritual's consequences had begun. Everything was disappearing before her eyes. With no way to save the businesses, Anita turned to what she thought was her last hope, the jewelry. Benson had given her gold and diamond necklaces, bracelets and earrings worth millions. If she could sell them, she would still have something left. She rushed home, her heart racing, but as soon as she arrived at the mansion, she knew something was wrong. Police officers were standing outside. Her breath caught in her throat. She stepped out of the car, her legs shaking. "Officer, what's going on?" One of the officers turned to her with a serious expression. "Mrs. Benson, I'm afraid we have bad news. Your house was broken into last night. Everything of value has been stolen." Anita's knees gave way and she collapsed onto the ground. No, 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 no! Her jewelry, her last hope, gone. Tears streamed down her face. She was finished. Everything was gone. Everything. With no other option, Anita packed a small bag, took her son, and walked away from the mansion she once ruled. She had nowhere to go, no money, no home, no friends. Her only option? Clara. As she arrived at Clara's small apartment, she hesitated at the door. What if Clara turned her away? What if she slammed the door in her face? Taking a deep breath, Anita knocked. When Clara opened the door and saw her, she gasped. Her mouth fell open as she took in Anita's appearance. Her once glamorous hair was messy, her expensive clothes were replaced with a simple gown, and her eyes were swollen from crying. For the first time in her life, Anita had nothing. Clara's lips parted in shock. "Anita!" Anita collapsed to her knees, clutching Clara's legs as tears streamed down her face. Her once proud and confident voice was now trembling with desperation. "Clara, please, I have nowhere else to go," she sobbed, her grip tightening. "I know I've done terrible things. I know I hurt you, but please, just give me a second chance." Clara folded her arms, staring down at her with a mixture of shock and coldness. The sight of Anita, the same Anita who once mocked her for living a simple life, who abandoned her for a life of wealth, now begging at her feet, was almost unbelievable. "You brought this upon yourself," Clara said flatly, stepping back, forcing Anita's hands to slip from her legs. "I warned you, didn't I? I told you that your greed would destroy you, but you refused to listen. Now look at you," Anita sniffled, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Clara, I know I was blind. I know I was selfish. I thought I had it all figured out, but I was wrong. Please, I just need a place to stay. Just for a while." Clara scoffed. "And why should I help you? Where was your sympathy when you abandoned me for money, when you lied to me and stole that man's number behind my back? You didn't care about me then, Anita, so why should I care now?" Anita sobbed harder, her shoulders shaking. "I have a child, Clara. I can't let Ethan suffer because of my mistakes. He's innocent in all of this." She turned to look at her son, who was clinging to her dress, his small, confused eyes darting between the two women. Clara's gaze softened slightly as she looked at Ethan. The little boy had done nothing wrong. He was just a child. But still, the pain Anita had caused her was too fresh, too deep. Anita grabbed her hands desperately. "I know, Clara, I know, and I'll do anything to make it right. Just give me a chance to prove it to you. I'll change, I promise. Please, don't turn me away." Clara let out a deep sigh. Her heart was at war with itself. She wanted to walk away, to leave Anita to face the consequences of her choices alone, but then she looked at Ethan again. The child was clutching his mother's dress, his tiny face full of innocence and confusion. With another heavy sigh, Clara finally spoke. Anita's eyes widened in surprise. "What? Zatai?" "I said fine," Clara repeated, her voice slightly irritated. "But don't think this means I've forgiven you. I'm only doing this because of Ethan. He's just a child. He shouldn't have to suffer for your mistakes." Anita broke down again, this time in gratitude. "Thank you, Clara. Thank you so much." Clara stepped aside and gestured toward the small apartment. "Come in, but don't get too comfortable. This isn't your palace, Anita. If you stay here, you follow my rules." Anita nodded quickly. "Of course, Clara. I'll do anything. Thank you." She gathered Ethan in her arms and stepped into the apartment, her heart heavy with both relief and shame. She had lost everything, but at least she had one last chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. As Anita settled into Clara's small apartment, she noticed how different her friend had become. There were no flashy wigs, no tight dresses, no loud music playing in the background. Instead, Clara sat at a small desk, her laptop open, wearing a simple t-shirt and joggers. Anita watched in confusion. "Clara, what's going on? Where's the old you?" Clara sighed, shutting her laptop. "Anita, I've changed. I'm no longer into clubbing, runs, or chasing rich men. I decided to take my life seriously." Anita frowned. "What do you mean?" Clara leaned back in her chair. "I realized that life isn't about fast money. I was tired of living recklessly, tired of depending on men who only saw me as an object. So I took control of my future. I learned tech skills, and now I work as a remote customer service representative." Anita blinked in surprise. "Tech? You?" Clara chuckled. "Yes, me. And guess what? It pays well, I work from home, I make good money, and I don't have to worry about my life falling apart overnight." She looked at Anita seriously. "Anita, You need to leave your past life behind. You've seen where it led you. It's time to start over. Anita lowered her gaze, feeling ashamed. Could she really change? Could she let go of the only life she had ever known? Clara placed a hand on her shoulder. I'll help you, Anita, but you have to be willing to change. Anita swallowed hard, nodding slowly. Maybe, just maybe. This was her second chance. With Clara's support, Anita began to rebuild her life. She took on odd jobs, learned new skills, and slowly started piecing herself back together. The road was long and difficult, but she learned valuable lessons about humility, hard work, and the true meaning of wealth. In the end, Anita realized that chasing material things had only brought her misery. True wealth, she learned, came from love, friendship, and the strength to overcome life's challenges. And though she had lost everything, she gained something far more valuable, a second chance to live a meaningful life.